G'day, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk regulations. And regulations in New Zealand, it's already one of the most over-regulated places in the world if you want to fly a drone or a radio-controlled model aircraft. And recently, the Civil Aviation Authority, the people who make the rules and enforce the rules, they published an NPRM trying to introduce some new regulations. And one of the most worrying ones was this, 2.9. It says, person must meet specified conditions before carrying out operation beyond visual line of sight. Section A. Despite Clause 1.17, a person may operate a remotely piloted aircraft beyond visual line of sight if 1. The operation occurs indoors and the operation does not take place over any persons that are not involved in the operation and the person has successfully completed a Part 141 unmanned aircraft course. So they were saying if you want to fly your 20-gram tiny whoop down your own hall, FPV, you've got to pass a course. You must successfully complete an unmanned aircraft course. This is in your own home. This is your own drone. There's windows closed, doors locked, nobody else in the house. You still could not legally have done it without passing this Part 141 unmanned aircraft course. Now, of course, it was an NPRM, wasn't a rule, so lots of people responded. And they've summarised the responses. Here's CAA's response. Let me just make this a little bigger for you so you can read it if you're watching on a portable device. Here we go. This is what they say. The authority's responsibility... Oh, first of all, go back a little bit. Here we go. Yeah. A number of submitters also disagreed with the proposed training requirement for indoor FPV. Well, who the hell wouldn't? And CAA's response is, the authority's responsibility of regulating aviation safety and security is not limited by an activity being conducted in an enclosed space, and there is no explicit legislation which curtails this responsibility inside a private residence. So they're saying, yeah, as CAA, we have a right/obligation to regulate what happens inside a private dwelling with a toy drone. Now, of course, CAA, they tend to be a little pragmatic at times, and I think they were on a hiding to nothing on this one. So they've also said, however, the authority can exercise its discretion in assessing whether operations inside certain enclosed spaces warrant active regulation. Why didn't they do that before they made this lame suggestion that we would have to pass an exam to fly a toy inside our own houses? Why did we have to go to an NPRM with that? Nobody could have thought for one moment this was ever going to pass muster, but they did it anyway. So then they say, based on the submissions and a reassessment of the inherent risks of operating in enclosed areas away from uninvolved people, the proposed rules have been amended to explicitly allow for beyond visual line of sight operations when they are conducted in enclosed areas which do not allow for the UA to escape, and the entrance to the enclosed area is restricted in a way that would stop uninvolved persons entering the area of operation. Well, hell, knock me down with a feather. Wasn't that pretty damn obvious right from the get-go? They've reassessed the inherent risks. Well, obviously they did a pretty crappy job of assessing the risks in the first place. And one of the key things to producing good regulation is doing a risk assessment. They don't know how to do a risk assessment. What on earth could possibly be dangerous about flying a 20-gram toy drone in your hallway if you're the only person home? It's just, why didn't they do their homework in the first place? All dues, after much, obviously very negative feedback on this particular part of the proposed regulations, they backed down, but they would have just got thrashed in the media if they hadn't. But why did it even get to the NPRM? It should never have been in there. And it says here, this allowance will be able to be exercised without the previously disposed requirement for successful training or the submission of a declaration. Well, golly. Who the hell is making these NPRMs? Why did they think that was a good idea in the first place? And it says, consideration was given to alternative proposals raised by submitters. However, the scope of the work to be completed was set out by cabinet agreement and thus limits the scope of what could be included. So our politicians are partly to blame for this. I mean, the dead wood always floats to the top, and our halls of power are filled with bits of dead wood claiming to be politicians. It's ridiculous, outrageous. CAA's a little bit caught between a rock and a hard place, but still, to suggest that you would need to pass a training course in order to fly a toy in your own hallway, that is just, no, I'm sorry. Whoever's at CAA and come up with that for the NPRM, you need a holiday, you need a break. Maybe just a couple of years, 10 years, maybe find another job. Macca's is always looking for good workers. I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. So that's where we're at with that particular thing. Now, there are other rules and regulations discussed here. I may do another video, but basically, my proposal, I responded to the NPRM, of course, as I always do, and I suggested, look, stop trying to reinvent the wheel, you guys. Just do what Transport Canada has done and say, if it's under 250 grams, it's a micro drone. There are no prescriptive rules. It's performance-based regulation. We're just going to say, don't hurt people, don't break their stuff. It's simple as that. And don't fly where you're not allowed. Simple as that. That's all you have to do. But no. Our Civil Aviation Authority seems to want to... Let me have a look here. We'll go up here. There's stuff about property. I'll see if I can find it. Flying over people and property without consent. Many submitters noted the lack of privacy and security considerations regarding overflight of people and private property. Submitters had several proposals for remedying the issues, and these included establishing a managed weight limit, pilot certification requirement, and mandatory insurance as conditions for the overflight of people. Well, personally, I don't think flying over people is a good idea, full stop. Even with a very small drone. You can frighten people. If you've got a crowd, they might stampede. It's not a good... I always avoid flying over people. Even if I was legally allowed to, it would be outside my comfort zone. So I will not fly over people. That's my choice. Then it says, allowing brief transit over areas provided that they do not create a nuisance or hazard. Well, that's a pretty good idea. Adding a fit and proper person test for users and only allowing third-party property flights to be operated by a Part 61 license holder. This is, now, and we're talking about flying over a grassy field in the middle of nowhere here. If you don't have the permission of the property owner, you should have to have a license and be a fit and proper person and audited and all this. No, sorry, but where's the risk? Anyway, several submitters recommended including a definition for the following terms: private property, noting that in agricultural settings, private property can encompass a significant area, and an operation conducted over persons, noting that the current wording is not explicit enough and could be remedied by adding appropriate lateral distance limit. They just want to complicate things. And the Civil Aviation response is, following further consultation, it was determined that without wider safety mitigation measures, the proposal to allow flights over private property without prior consent carries additional safety and security concerns. Safety concerns, flying over a grassy field. Excuse me, what's the risk? A blade of grass will get bent if a drone falls out of the sky? Anyway, what about safety concerns? Well, you can fly over private property in a light aircraft or a helicopter. You can have a camera with a long lens. You can violate their privacy and their security, all you like. No problems as far as CAA is concerned. Anyway, it says, while it may be possible to allow for these operations in the future using amendments to the Transport Instrument 101, more work is needed to ensure that the changes do not inadvertently create unintended safety and security concerns. Measures would also be needed to ensure that some controls are still available to owners of sensitive locations such as schools, infrastructure, etc. So what they're saying is we haven't updated our regulations for over 10 years, but we need more time. Oh, come on. Seriously, you've had 10 damn years to look at this. People have been bitching about this private property thing. In New Zealand, for those who don't know, you cannot fly anywhere, absolutely anywhere, without the prior permission of the property owner. Now, if it's your own property, you can give yourself permission. Sometimes in the case of a park or something, the local council, the owner of the property, may have given you prior permission. But if you go out somewhere, you see a lovely grassy field, there's nothing in it, there's no one around, you cannot legally fly your drone or model aircraft over it because it's against the regulations. Even if there's zero risk to anybody or any property, still illegal. Still can't do it. Still can't break that regulation. And this is the lunacy that we have here in New Zealand, overly restrictive. And, let me remind people who may not be aware of this, but as of the time I make this video, not one single person has been killed anywhere on the planet in all of time through the recreational use of a multi-rotor drone. It is the perfect safety record. Meanwhile, manned aircraft are falling out of the sky all over the place. Airliners are crashing. All sorts of mayhem's going on. But no. We'll let them fly over private property. We'll let a light aircraft fly over private property. And they sometimes crash into private property and kill people. But we can't let someone fly a 20-gram drone over a grassy field in the middle of nowhere because security and safety. Oh, really, if it's CAA and other regulators, if you want to be respected, if you want compliance with your regulations, they have to make sense. This does not make sense. And so this is why one of the most violated parts of the civil aviation regulations are the consent over property part. This part is widely ignored because people say, it's just stupid, it's ridiculous, I'm not going to do that. And unless CAA brings this into line with common sense and the solid, hard data that we have now over a decade of, they're not going to get compliant. So your rule, if it's not going to be complied with, your rule is worthless. You might as well not have a rule at all because people will just ignore it. Anyway, that's my little rant. I don't think there's anything else. Or some stuff about aerodromes, flying around aerodromes, blah, blah, blah. And again, Transport Canada's proven that with a sub 250 gram drone, you can fly anywhere you like. No one's been killed, no major property damage. But CAA, no, we can't learn from other people's experience. We cannot go from the huge weight of data that's come out of Canada and other countries that show that sub 250 grams are totally safe, as I've just mentioned, as are larger craft in the hands of recreational operators. We can't rely on data. We've got more work to do. We've got politicians to help us. Oh, God, I don't know. If I had hair, I'd pull it out in despair, but this is just turning into a rant now. So anyway, I will be following up on this. We'll see what comes of this. So we've had the NPRM, we've had the feedback. Here's a summary of feedback. Let's see what the actual rules turn into, but I don't have great hopes for any sensible reform to the drone rules in New Zealand, which means...
Well, surely we don't have to obey all the regulations all the time, sir.
You know my views about some regulations. They're written for the obedience of fools and the guidance of wise men.
Fuck's sake.